Folks wanted to know how to do a leaf tutorial, so I'm going to show you. I come up at the top of my leaf and I pick a place, usually like not quite halfway down, but a little ways down so that I can have some direction to my leaf. And it's all just a series of satin stitches. If you want to conserve thread, you can come up close to where you went down. So I came up here, went down there, and rather than come back up over here, I'm going to come up right here. And then the trick to this is that you want to keep your stitches nice and close so that there's not a lot of gaps, at least in my opinion. There's really no wrong way to do a leaf, but that's how I like to do it. So this is going to give us a bunch of satin stitches. This is, in my opinion, the simplest way to stitch a leaf. And it gives you a little bit of a vein down the center. That's why I draw a vein. So you can do this with any shape leaf. If you come up too close to the one you just went down in, you'll undo your stitch, but that's not a big deal. And you can see you pull tight but not too tight. And so I'm going to show you this stitch and a series of other stitches. And use this as something of a leaf sampler. I'm using all 6 strands of floss, but I don't like stitching with all 6 strands of floss. So I actually pull out a really long length of floss and I split it into 3 and 3. And then I pull it apart and thread only 3 strands through my needle and then double it and knot it. So now you see the leaf is changing shape a little bit. So I'm going to be coming down a little further away from where I went up. And same thing. I want more of a curve here, so I'm going in further away from. Here's where I came up, and now I'm going down all the way down here. And that's just to give it the leaf a little bit of a curve, a little bit more shape. And this is another reason why I use these water-soluble pens, because I don't always follow what I've drawn. So if this was pencil, there would be a lot more pressure to follow the shape. And I guess because this is a video, I'm trying really hard to follow it, but I might ordinarily not. So to make this, so once I start getting close to the end, I will start coming up and going back down where did that make sense? So I went down there and I'm going to come up where I started. And I'm not really loving how long this whole lower part of the leaf is, so I think I might end it a little early. Like maybe one more stitch. There, that's good for now. So now I'm going to come back up to the top and start over. And I want to make this curve a little bit more exaggerated, or the point, I should say. I want to make the point a little bit more exaggerated. So I'm going to come up a little higher than what I drew. And you should see what I mean. So I'm a little higher than what I drew, and that'll give me more of a curve to my leaf. And I can tell I'm going to need to change my floss here in a minute. And I'm going to continue on with my stitches. And you'll see this is a little different. You can also just do a satin stitch all the way across just to make a leaf shape. But by coming to the middle, you're going to create a little bit of a vein. You'll see what I mean. And so what I was saying is you can either come up where you went down in, or I'll show you in just a second. And a big piece like this, that saves a lot of thread. I'll show you what I mean on the back side. So see, there's no the leaf does not look the same on the back as it does on the front because I'm conserving thread floss. If I was to go down here at the vein and then come back up here, I would use twice as much floss, which is, in a way, it's easier. So maybe if you're starting out, that might be easier for you, especially when it comes to this vein part. It's just a little bit trickier finding the right place to come up with your needle. But I feel like I've been at it long enough. I don't. So you might be wondering why the other leaves are outlined and this one isn't. That's because if you run a back stitch or a split back stitch or a stem stitch around on the lines, it's going to give the leaf a little extra dimension. It's going to stand up off of the fabric more. And I don't know what that's about there. I want to fix that. So I'm going to, did you see how that floss was looking funny? I'm just going to pull it up and pull it back down. So anyway, these lines here, I could leave it like that. That's certainly a leaf shape. Or I could do this same type of stitching on those, which I will probably do. And it gives you a little more dimension, and it makes a cleaner line along the edges because it's easier to follow a stitched line than it is a line that you just drew with a marker. So I prefer those, but they take a little more time, and you'd have to first know how to do a split stitch or a back stitch. So I'm coming to the end, and you can see again I did not quite follow the shape that I drew. Everybody asks about what type of water-soluble pen I use. It's called Leonis. It's right here. The only place I've been able to find them is on Amazon. They are shorter, and so I feel like, I don't know if they last longer I don't know. I like them better than what I get at the craft store. They seem to last longer. And they're cheaper, a lot cheaper. So now you just have to decide how you want the bottom part to look. I guess I'll keep going a little bit here so that vein finishes. I could also make this part of the stem of the leaf. But, I mean, it really doesn't get much more simple than this. It's just a satin stitch up and down, and the trick is to follow the curves. And so here I'm going to decide what do I want to do. And I might come back, I think I'll come back with a slightly different color floss. And maybe add some shading or something just to make it a little more interesting. But you certainly don't need to. That's definitely a leaf shape. And as you can see, you can do it with any shape. So that's leaf number 1.